Um, if people have chronic fatigue, if they have fibromyalgia, if they have PCOS, if they have mystery weight gain, if they have autism, if they have ADHD, all of these things, he really addresses and talks about what the underlying cause is and how to heal it instead of how to mask it.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, his information. I highly recommend him. And so with people, when I work with them, I do incorporate medical medium practices and herbs into their diet. And I've just seen so many great examples of women who have really practiced the lifestyle that he recommends and healed from the most insane chronic illnesses.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a new travel podcast by me, Payal Nayar. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Hi everyone. Today I am in conversation with Michelle Deborah. Michelle is an advocate for a raw vegan diet, and she's also a health coach. Michelle is talking to me from Florida, and so we've actually got this 12-hour time difference. So she's so radiant this morning, and I'm radiant as well, I think. So thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here and on this podcast. I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So Michelle, let's start a little bit with your background. Which part of the US are you from? And, a little bit about your childhood before we sort of start talking about, what you are currently doing.
Yeah. I'm actually a missionary kid. My parents were missionaries to Peru, and I was born there and raised there for 17 years. So very international, global mindset. I came back to the United States because we had to. My whole family moved, or I would have stayed probably. But it was the best thing for me. I was 17, and we were at a very small school, and I did so much better with coming back to a big school with lots of people because I was outgoing and I wanted to do activities. So by the time we left, everything was kind of narrowing down and more and more people were leaving, and I would have been like the only one in my class. So that wasn't very good for like my quality of life. So it was the best for me for sure. And I did my senior year in the United States. And then I took a year off. I went to England for a semester, and then I started college, and I did 4 years, and that was all in North Carolina. And then I lived there in North Carolina for, I think, about 10, no, it was 12 years, 12 years in North Carolina. And then me and my sister, who was also working in North Carolina at the time, thought, these jobs aren't really serving us anymore. We're cold all the time. We're used to the weather where it's warm. Let's move to Florida. And we literally moved to Florida for the heat, for the sunshine, for the weather. And we just looked up best cities to live in Florida and picked one. We're in St. Pete right now.
Sorry, where are you?
St. Petersburg.
Okay.
St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
It is wonderful here. It is sunny all the time. The coast kind of shelters the heat. So we do kind of keep, as far as Florida goes, more ambient temperatures. It only gets up to 95. It doesn't go above 100, or in a lot of places like Orlando and South Florida, they can get really hot temperatures, and we typically don't. So that's like a summer in Charlotte anyway. or in DC, they can get
Yeah.
above 100 in those
Yeah.
areas, and it doesn't get
Yeah.
above 100, but it can get hot and muggy. But we say the glorious heat because we were at least not in the cold, and
Yeah.
now it's
You've also
awesome for
been,
us.
I guess you've also been used to it because of, 17 years of your life. You
Yes.
you kind of you get acclimatized to a certain kind of weather,
Hmm.
and I can understand that. And I know a lot of people who are actually, who live up north, or who live in New York. Are kind of finding their second home in Miami, so that, or somewhere, generally in Miami, but also other parts of Florida, just to get away from the very, very severe winters. So yeah, no, good on
Hmm.
you for having made that decision very early on in your life. So okay, so let's kind of move on a little bit, in fact, totally, to how to veganism, and whether this was something that you know came to you naturally. How did you decide to make that a way of life?
Hmm. I feel like I have a really interesting story in that I was throughout my whole life, from 5 years old to when I first became and heard of veganism, I was sick. And I didn't even know it because I'd had it so, like you said, when we get acclimatized
Yeah.
or, accustomed to something, we don't realize that it's different. And my whole life, I had asthma. I had skin histamine issues where I would scratch my skin and it would just be red welts as if I'd been eaten by ants. I had a really low immune system. I was sick 6 or 7 times a year. And because of the asthma, those bouts of sickness lasted about 2 weeks long. So, half the year I'm sick with congestion and flu like symptoms. And then anytime I would have asthma, I often had to be pulled out of PE or not be able to participate in field day. It was just to the point where, and overseas, I had medical care, but it wasn't necessarily, I would say, anywhere in the world. How the doctors have not given me any insight into the treatment that I really needed, which was an anti-inflammatory diet. Um, so I wasn't getting expert care. It was all emergency care. I was on inhalers probably 3 times a day. And then I was also on albuterol nebulizers. I had to go to doctors and get adrenaline shots, shot up when I was really, really low. I was tracking my peak flow 3 times a day. It was a really severe case. And by the time I went up to the United States, and my doctor took my oxygen levels, and I think it was like a 90, in the 90s, but very low 90s. And I was like, yeah, this actually is kind of a good day. I'm breathing pretty well. And he was like, this is not a good day. You are in, this is emergency amounts of oxygen in your body. And I was like, oh, whoa, this has been normal for me my entire life. And they put me on Advair. And Advair is a corticosteroid. And they said, you'll just be on a corticosteroid for the rest of your life. And that's what all doctors said. Here's a medication, and you're just going to take it for the rest of your life because we don't know if you'll ever grow out of it. And corticosteroid, this Advair, has only been tested for 6 months, but they prescribe it for life. So what doctors are doing, who really knows?
Yeah.
But I took it, and actually for 4 years, it worked. I was able to exercise. I started leading hikes. I was able to get a health degree, and was able to, take PE and do all the exercise and physical activity. I was working out all the time. But with the need, I tried to go off of it and was hospitalized. So, due to just the worst asthma attack I had ever had. So it was like this binding. You'll either have to take this forever, you can never go off of it, because if you go off of this medication, you will be extremely sick. And then that's where I was at. I was just forced to take this medication. It was $200 a month. Um, that was after insurance, and that's somebody's grocery bill, in the
And
United
for
States.
your, I
That's
mean,
that's a lot of money.
so just, if you could, I mean, I understand it, but for people who don't, the difference between being a vegetarian, being a vegan, um,
Mhm,
and when you say a plant-based diet, what
mhm,
exactly do you mean?
mhm,
What does the diet actually include?
Yeah, for everybody listening, a vegetarian or a lacto-ovo vegetarian means they don't eat meat, but they'll still eat eggs and dairy. And then there's a pescatarian. They eat fish. They include fish, but they don't eat red meat, pork, or chicken or other
That's
meat.
me. That's me.
Yes,
I'm a
pescatarian.
pescatarian. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, very Mediterranean lifestyle. And then a vegan chooses to also include not eating anything from an animal at all. And it's not necessarily a diet as much as there are vegans that it includes not wearing leather, not going to zoos. It's a whole mindset of I'm not going to participate or spend my dollars where an animal might be suffering. So they don't buy products that have been tested on animals, but they also don't eat um, any kind of meat, fish, dairy, eggs, or even honey. And then also it goes on into their and on into their lifestyle of where they also don't participate in animal cruelty. And then plant based is also very similar to vegan. They don't eat eggs, dairy, or meat, um, but they also don't eat junk food. So it's more of the advocacy for a healthier vegan diet. So vegans can still eat Oreos and drink beer and just chug canola oil if they want to because it's all vegan. But a but a plant-based person will eat fruits,
And what
vegetables,
that
nuts,
does to
seeds.
your heart, what that does to your heart,
Yes,
completely negates
yeah.
everything. Yeah, cancels out being vegan. Any one or two examples of, you've mentioned, of course, how a couple of women who kind of recovered completely following the other, the sort of, what's the term? Anyways, my point is that a couple of examples that you can share, because we're talking about you here, on how you have seen people who've come to you get healed with
Mhm,
your, therapy or diet or whatever it may be, and what kind
mhm,
of, problems did they come with?
mhm. Yeah, I have two great examples. The first one came with diabetes, and she was already eating um, very well, but um, we worked on tweaking a few things to really make it impactful as far as continuing to lower her insulin resistance and her sugar levels, and she lost a lot of weight from beginning to end. We worked together for about 3 months, and I'm not sure at this time what her insulin levels had dropped down to, but I think they dropped down from being. And she wasn't using medication. She was using diet to drop her insulin levels. And she had gotten by herself. She did all of this, and she had already started long before I came into the picture, but we worked together for 3 months. But she got herself down from the beginning. I think her numbers were easily an average of 200 to 300 when she would check them in the morning to being like 120, 130 in the morning when she would check them on a fasting, as she woke up in the morning. um, she was amazing, just getting her insulin levels checked under control by herself with smoothies and fruit juices and salads, and she just wouldn't waver from that. She just stuck stuck the path, and then saw that number steadily decline. And that was amazing to see. And then I had someone who was working with their PCOS and also insulin resistance and mystery weight gain and all of those things. And their weight loss journey has been very interesting because the chronic illnesses were so kind of locked in that those were the first to be addressed. And then she saw some weight gain, but the weight gain has been slower. And but as far as the benefits of what she was doing, just didn't even compare to, you start out and you want to lose weight. And then all of a sudden you're on this lifestyle and her anxiety was lower and she stopped having headaches. She stopped having migraines when monthly cycle migraines. And, skin tags, she mentioned, had started subsiding, and those are related to insulin resistance, and insulin resistance was clearing up. And all these things as a benefit, and your skin is glowing and you have more energy and you can go into work and you don't have anxiety about that project the next day, and you're able to have energy. And she was able to have energy to move into an apartment and to deal with, working full time, moving XYZ family all at once, and was like, wow, I'm managing this, instead of if this were 5 months ago, I would be,
Struggling.
on
Yeah.
the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just the incorporating of that, of the lifestyle of, she switched over, she was eating a plant-based diet. And one of the things I teach is, if you are going to have fat, continue to have a fat-free diet throughout the day. If you're trying to lose weight, let your liver detoxify from like 8 a.m. to 2. So you can have fat. I recommend that in a salad at night, like an awesome dressing on your salad. Make that really delicious and enjoyable. But during the day, have your smoothies, have your fruits, have your celery juices, have your lemon waters, have dates and celery, like all those things, but keep it fat free. That will help with the weight loss, because when people add in fat during the day, often what's plateauing them. So she had amazing results as well. One of my favorite ever clients to work with, just
And
so incredible.
she's
So
continuing
much
to follow your regime, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. She's at it. She's killing it. She's doing awesome. Yeah.
Before we end, if there's anything that you'd like to say, and also if people want to reach out to you, please just feel free to mention how they're able to do that.
Yes. I'll leave with this. If anyone is wanting to transition to a plant-based diet, I always start them out with what I call the 20 to 30 rule, which is eating 20 to 30 servings of fruits and vegetables in their day. And that blows people's minds, because that's so much. And then I teach them how. I have a whole book on it. Actually, it's free, and they can get it from my Instagram, which is Michelle, Michelle _ Deborah, Deboraw. So from my Instagram is the best way to find me, because that link in my bio has a ton of different links to all of the different things. That free ebook on the 20 to 30 rule, it's actually called my #1 weight loss solution or strategy, something like that, but it's free. I love it. But I tell people to crowd out the bad food. So people are typically used to eating, especially here in the United States, 1 serving of fruits and vegetables a day. So that means they're eating a lot of pizza, a lot of lasagna, a lot of processed food. They're eating burgers, and this is their typical fried food, takeout, all of those things. So I say crowd out the bad food. So if your dinner is typically a whole pizza, why don't you start with a giant salad, make it 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, and you eat that first. So before you eat anything else, you get in your 10 servings in that one meal of fruits and vegetables. And then if you have room for anything else, go for it. Eat it, because you're still getting in the 30 servings of fruits and vegetables, and those are going to impact your diet. Those are going to change your thought process. Those are going to change your gut microbiome, which is in turn going to increase your immunity, which is in turn going to increase the way that your body and brain is able to function and think. So start with just, you eat the plants first, and then if you have room, eat other things. And I think that helps a lot of people transition because they're not cutting anything out. They're just adding things in. And then I also recommend for people to start, getting in the kitchen and making their own food and trying to find dishes that are naturally vegan or plant-based. For example, pizza is really hard to start eating a vegan pizza. I don't even eat vegan pizza because a cheeseless pizza without any meat on it is disgusting.
Yeah.
And nobody would want that. So I tell people eat Thai food. Thai food is naturally dairy free. Eat Chinese food, naturally dairy free. Anything Asian, amazing. Mediterranean is often dairy free, often vegan.
Yeah.
There's so many dishes. I went to Egypt and they eat very Mediterranean, and I was able to maintain a fully plant based diet just on the food that they eat
Yeah.
because they have so many plant based sides. So I tell people to switch over to cuisines that are they naturally don't have the things in them that you're trying to avoid, because then you're not missing anything. You're not like, oh, this taco would be really good with some sour cream on it. But I also recommend you add, one of your questions earlier was, what is some dairy alternatives?
Yeah.
And my favorite dairy alternative for people is a cashew cream. So with cashew cream, it's very versatile and you can make a few adjustments and turn it into a million different things. So the first thing is if you do cashews, lemon, garlic, and salt, super simple. And you add a little black pepper, and that can be an Alfredo. If you add a little mustard, that can be a sour cream or a mayo. If you take out the garlic and take out a little bit of the salt and you add a sweetener, that can be a whipped cream topping. So it's a sweet cream. And if you, let's see, how many different things did I turn it into? If you add to the savory one with the garlic, if you add a little bit of dill or, I think I just add dill and parsley and it's ranch dressing. So this basic recipe, you can turn into ranch dressing, sour cream, mayo, like a dessert cream,
Yeah.
or an Alfredo sauce. It's amazing. So it covers all your bases.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to do dairy. And the more people cut out dairy, and the better they will feel. The dairy in the United States is extremely, extremely processed. There's a whole deep dive. I could go into that, but just cutting out dairy, people will feel better. But yeah, do substitutes, make your own, try a few things. There's a really cool mac and cheese. Type in like vegan mac and cheese recipes online, and they have this really awesome, like creamy cashew cream, but they add carrots to it to make it bright orange. So delicious. So there's all these different delicious things. Pinterest. I tell people, get a Pinterest account. I actually have a Pinterest account, and if you go to it, my food section has over 900 recipes, not my own, but just recipes that I've saved that are plant-based recipes. I would say 99% of them. And if they weren't plant-based, it's because I was intending to make them and do some substitutions.
Right.
So, just making a Pinterest account and going online and typing in vegan food or plant-based food and just start saving them to a folder.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend for people to transition.
Great.
So,
yeah.
And yes, my handle, Michelle_Deborah, is the best way to find me. I would love to hear from anyone.
That's how my team found you, in fact. So
Amazing.
my team kind of they were so kind of impressed with your handle, and then they sent me the information. Of course, I kind of researched you, and I figured, yes, Michelle, I will talk to for sure.
Thank you. I am so honored. That's amazing.
And just very quickly, I wanted to add that because you mentioned Thai food, Chinese food, I think for me, living in this part of the world, truly is just amazing because like you mentioned, kimchi. I mean, there are so many healing properties in a lot of the food, which, of course, there's a lot of rice, and of course there's a lot of like in Chinese food, there's a lot of meat as well, pork. They eat a lot of pork. But if you eliminate all of that, there's a lot of vegetables. There are a lot of greens. There's kimchi. There's Japanese food is just amazing. You can have sashimi. It's just it's like a haven when it comes to people like us who are very conscious about what we eat and what goes into our body. And so the fact that you're incorporating that and you're talking about that as well is quite interesting, and I think more and more people should, like you mentioned, definitely be, and there are simple ways of doing it. You don't have, it's not elaborate. It's just and it's not like stressful or painful. You can just very gradually incorporate these minor changes, which eventually can help you lead a much healthier and, I would say, happier life.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Yeah, so great. Thank you so much, Michelle. It was, like I'm saying it
Thank
again,
you.
it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.